BC, arguably the best province in Canada. You've always probably wanted to visit, but it's a tremendous job to plan everything out, especially when you don't know what you can even find here. Luckily, I've planned everything out for you, so you don't have to worry about anything except hopping on a plane and flying over to visit BC. Now, when you're visiting BC, there's 3 different areas that I recommend you to visit. The first area to visit is Vancouver, with a beautiful city, restaurants, and just an awesome area in general, with many different parks and things to do. Next, moving up north, we have our second area, which is Squamish and Whistler, with the best views and mountains that you will see during your visit. Going off of the mainland, we have the lower east coast of Vancouver Island, which is our third area, which includes Parksville, Nanaimo, and Victoria as our main destinations. Okay, so let's just say you arrived on a plane into Vancouver. So the first thing you're going to want to do when you arrive at the airport is rent a car, because without a car you're not going anywhere. Next, I recommend renting a hotel near or inside of North Vancouver. Now, there's quite a few different hotel options that you can choose from. I do not recommend staying at North Vancouver Hotel, as in our experience it was pretty dirty and the plumbing was pretty clogged. Now, please book all of your hotels well in advance before you actually come and visit. I recommend about a month before you actually come and visit. Now, once you've gone ahead and gotten a nice and long rest in your hotel, what is there actually to do in Vancouver? So let's start with the must-visit places. First off, we got Stanley Park. It is a humongous park which has awesome views of Vancouver and West Vancouver. I do recommend renting a bike, as it's easier to park rather than a car and it's faster than walking, though please ignore the 29 minutes that Google Maps is telling me, as it's realistically more like an hour to an hour and a half. Next, we have the Capilano Suspension Bridge Park. The Capilano Park is really big and you would need a few days to explore all of it. But in reality, I recommend just visiting the Suspension Bridge Park, as it has a beautiful suspension bridge which you can cross if you're not afraid. Now, once you cross the bridge, there's a huge park that you can walk around. Most of the park is laid down with wood, so you can have a nice and easy walk. You can go on top onto the trees and walk on bridges that are built from tree to tree. Now, the best time to visit this park is in early spring and late autumn, when there's less people around in this park. Now it's getting pretty high. And if you're not tired after all of that, you can go on a small cliffside walk and walk on glass platforms 50 meters above the Capilano River if you dare. Then there's a nice restaurant to go take a rest, and then there's the best gift shop that you will witness during this trip. Capilano Suspension Bridge Park is an awesome park and you should definitely visit. Now, if you're going to visit, please plan for about 2 hours. And if you're going to eat lunch in the restaurant, you can make that 3 hours. And if you're visiting during your vacation, I do recommend coming during the work days, as there's a lot less people and it's easier to enjoy this park when there's less people. After the Capilano Suspension Bridge Park, if you drive just a few minutes up north until Cleveland Dam, you can see some beautiful views of mountains and the lake from the dam. Next, if you drive for about an hour east across the whole of North Vancouver, you can arrive at Deep Cove, which is a beautiful spot and a great way to eat some takeout lunch. And one of my few favorite spots of Vancouver is the West Vancouver Boardwalk. It's a beautiful place and an awesome place to eat your takeout dinner. And then after that, you can have an awesome walk down the boardwalk with some beaches, some parks, a nice, close to the water, cemented walk, which is just really beautiful. And finally, is there to eat in West Vancouver? The best spot to eat a takeout dinner is Benny Sushi. Now, I don't exactly know how good their sushi is, but what I do know is that their chicken teriyaki with white rice and vegetable is the best dish that you can find. Next, we also have Dennis, which is an okay breakfast spot. The food is okay and the service is pretty good too. Now with that, we are finished with our first area, which is Vancouver, and now we're gonna move up north to Whistler and Squamish. And on your way to Whistler and Squamish, there's a few places I recommend stopping by for a few photos and a small walk. Our first stop is Cypress Lookout because it has an awesome view of the city, and I do recommend visiting during the sunset as it makes it incredibly beautiful. The drive up to Whistler itself is an awesome experience, so make sure to always look out of your window because you'll see some awesome mountain views. Next, as we move up northward, you should definitely stop at Furry Creek. It is a small village, but the view is incredibly beautiful once you reach the water, and sometimes you can even see orcas like we did. After visiting Furry Creek, your next stop will be Britannia Mine Museum. When you're visiting Squamish and Whistler, I recommend stopping at Mountain Retreat Hotel and Suites. It's a pretty good hotel. The price is a bit higher than most of the other hotels in the area, but from reviews, it is one of the nicest hotels in Squamish. And I recommend staying in Squamish and Whistler only for a day or maybe two, because there's not too many things to do in there unless you're a big mountain biking or snowboarding / skier fan during the winter. Now, if you're not planning to go mountain biking or snowboarding, there is this awesome peak-to-peak gondola where you ride across from the Whistler Village up to Whistler Mountain, across to Blackcomb Mountain, and then back down to Whistler Village. Just make sure to go there in the morning because sometimes it closes around 3 or 4. Also, it probably takes about 2 to 3 hours to complete. There's also a humongous network of bike trails that are also extremely walkable. On almost every trail, you will get some awesome views. And Wedge Park is just past Whistler, has some beautiful views, and is an awesome place to eat lunch. And finally, if you have a few hours to spare, you can go to Railway Museum of British Columbia, which is located in Squamish. Inside the train museum, there's a bunch of different things that you can do. You can walk around and explore all of the old trains. Some of them are incredibly big, and you can even go inside of them and explore. You can also ride on small model trains, which is kind of fun. And with that, we are done with the mainland, and now we're going to be moving on onto our third and final area, which is Vancouver Island. To get to Vancouver Island, you have to take a ferry. If you don't know what a ferry is a big boat with cars and people that takes you from the island to the mainland and vice versa. And the closest ferry terminal to Whistler and Squamish is Horseshoe Bay. It is also one of the nicest. Horseshoe Bay is a small little town. I recommend spending an hour or two in Horseshoe Bay just walking, because there's a nice little park and playground and a beautiful area to watch the boats come and go. There's also numerous amounts of restaurants to eat if you're hungry. When you're taking the ferry, you have to book at least 2 weeks in advance, because especially during the holiday seasons, because it gets a lot of people want to get on, and without booking, there's a really small chance of you getting on, because basically how it works is for each ferry, there is 2 lines. So how it works is when the ferry comes, they first let on the people that booked, and then if there's extra space, then they let on the people that did not book. And so if you book, you need to come about half an hour before your ferry leaves, which is extremely reasonable. But if you did not book, then you might need to wait an hour, or you might need to wait 5 hours. It really depends, so I definitely assure you to book. When you arrive in Nanaimo, there's multiple great swim spots for you to visit. For example, there is Westwood Lake Park, which is a small lake with very good beaches, or if you prefer the ocean, then you can go visit Piper's Lagoon, where there's also a nice little park where you get a pretty cool view. Next, to the west of Nanaimo, there is Mainland Park. It is an awesome park with the biggest trees that I think you'll see, and sadly, the park isn't too big. It only takes probably about an hour or two to walk around the whole park. When you're coming back from Macmillan Provincial Park, I highly suggest you to stop in Parksville, because there is an awesome place to eat called Extreme Eatery, and there's also a mega park in case you have children, which is an awesome place to stop and take a rest. When you're finished exploring Parksville and Nanaimo, as you drive down to Victoria, I recommend stopping by Cowichan Lake. Cowichan Lake is a small little community that lives in between mountains on a beautiful lake. It is also a great swim spot, and you can even go on a lazy river, which takes a few hours. As you move down to Victoria, I highly recommend stopping by at Malahat Skywalk. After you're done with the Malahat Skywalk, I recommend stopping by at the Victoria Government Building, because right near there is an awesome, because outside you can have a nice walk. You can even go on a tour on horses. It's really nice. You get to learn a lot, and it's also really beautiful. And finally, as our final destinations, we have Butchered Garden. Butchered Garden is a really beautiful garden with many types of flowers from all over the world. It takes about 2 or 3 hours to walk around the whole park. And with that, we are finished. So finally, I recommend visiting around late spring or early summer, as it has the nicest weather. Please try to visit as much as you can during the weekdays, as there's a lot less people and easier to enjoy. And finally, be sure to book as much stuff as possible, because BC is a very popular place and there's a lot of people. And I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you around. Bye!